Hey guys, TJ here at Top Deck Cards and Games, and in this video I'm going to be doing a deck profile for the Bahamut Baron deck for Forcible. Bahamut Baron is a mono-red aggro deck. If you're familiar with red deck wins in Magic, it pretty much follows the exact same concept. The ruler is Bahamut, Fault God, the Dragoon on the other side. His flip ability, or his flip cost rather, is to sacrifice a Fire Resonator. When you flip him, he becomes a 1,000/1,000 flyer. And when he enters, he does damage equal to the attack of the Resonator you banish to a creature. You can also banish one of your Resonators to give him Imperishable. So he's pretty useful to flip very early just to get a resilient beater in play. 1,000 damage early is nothing to laugh at. For our stones, because we're playing mono red, we have 8 basic red stones, 1 Molest, and 1 Little Red, the pure stone. Little Red is much better than Molest, but you know, that's what you deal with. Molest is probably better than playing a basic redstone, though. Non-basics have their downside with Split the Heavens and Blood Moonbeam cards. For our creatures, we have 4 7 Dwarves. 7 Dwarves is kind of big for his cost. The 2-drop 7/7 does a lot of damage. This might be better as something else with a little more utility, but I decided just to go with the bigger beater, do the most damage, and be the hardest to block. Then we have 4 Black Goat. Black Goat is an interesting card. It seems almost terrible just at first glance, just being a 1-drop 200/200, but your opponent either has to devote to blocking it or they're going to take damage, or once they do block it, you can remove it from your yard to do an extra 200 burn. Games in this deck are decided on a pretty small margin. Your opponent will either survive with a couple hundred life and stabilize, or you know, you'll be a turn short of killing them when they start racing you. So the little extra damage and just the utility this thing brings to the table is actually pretty relevant. Plus it lets you sink your mana later in the game. Then we have the 1-drop really beaters for Wolf Hunted in the Black Forest, and for Apostle of Cain. These guys are both 1-drop 500 attacks. They don't do combat well. They have very low defense, this guy having 100 defense or having 300 defense. And Apostle has the upside of gaining haste or swiftness if your roller is attacked that turn. But these guys aren't meant to, you know, really trade effectively. You want to drop them early in the game and attack. The reason it's very relevant that these guys have 500 attack is that it makes it profitable to play a card like Thunder on your opponent's creatures and attack, because that forces your opponent either to use their turn playing removal or to put another blocker in play. But when they're smaller cards like Black Goat or our next creature, Huntsman of the Black Forest, your opponent is always going to be further ahead on life when you bolt their guy and attack with these cards than when you just bolt their face. The clog is just very relevant. That's not to say that it's not correct to bolt their blocker when you have this guy, by the way. Sometimes just keeping your creature around will just do more damage. This guy is haste though, so he's going to very regularly do 6, maybe even 9 damage before your opponent can deal with him, and almost always going to do 3 if you just cast him at an opportune time. And we play a decent number of creatures. We play 20 Resonators because we want to have early guys in play to sacrifice to flip our Bahamut. Most notably, you want to flip sacrificing Black Goat a lot of the time. It just provides the most value. Granted, the 200 burn to a creature isn't that big. The 500 will normally clear a blocker better, but you lose almost nothing by sacrificing Goat. For our spells, we have 4 Thunder and 4 Purifying Flame. These are pretty standard burn spells. Thunder can go to the creatures. Purifying Fire can also go to creatures if they're humans, and if not, it just goes straight to the dome for 700. And then, as far as more versatile removal that can also go to creatures, we have this card can go to creatures, right? I'm gonna feel really stupid if it can't. Target player, yeah, I was going to say. This card does 800 damage to a Resonator since we're playing Bahamut, or creature, or player god. It's the worst card in the deck, but it is another burn spell. It's reasonably powerful, just to do 800 damage. Then we have the most awkward burn, not awkward burn spell, but the most powerful burn spell in the deck. God, wrong card. Split the Heavens and Earth is very similar to Price of Progress from Magic the Gathering, if you're familiar with it. It does 300 damage for every special stone your opponent has, which, if you look at the decks from before MPR came out, most of them are playing like 10 special stones. So this card can do a ton of damage. It's not going to do that much. People are going to build their decks acknowledging it, or they're going to keep counter magic up for it, but this is the card that really makes red playable right now. It really clears the gap. Then we have 2 Eden, the Crimson Garden. Eden is a Sulfuric Vortex clone for Magic. It does functionally the exact same thing. It doesn't let your opponent gain life, and it does 200 every turn. And it's just really important to make it so your opponent can't stabilize by gaining life. And then our last card is For the First Lie. It's an interesting card in that it provides a lot of options for your opponent, gives them a choice of how the game is going to play out. normally I find the best way to play the card is just to pay a bunch of life to get the cards for yourself, because, you know, 3 burn spells is doing more damage than whatever they're going to play. Your opponent's not going to be able to pay 800-900 life against you. When you're drawing 3 cards and you draw, like, you know, this card, and a creature, like, this is going to do more than that, you know, 600-700 that they might have been willing to pay, if that even. So your life total is pretty relevant, actually, because you have so little defense if you're just going to their face. So it's very important to, you know, be cognizant of your life total when you're playing this card. But your opponent's life total is, you know, literally always under attack with this deck. Like, everything is going to their dome whenever you can, you know, effectively trade with their board with your spells and then deal damage to them. Like, you're always going to do as much damage to their face as possible, which makes it pretty relevant for them to pay as little as they can. Obviously, your opponent is going to want to get the cards, but you're normally going to have more life to play with, and 3 cards for you is going to do more damage to them than the life they would have chosen to pay normally. So you want to pay pretty aggressively. That's the deck, though. It's a fairly cheap deck, pretty good deck to start the game with. It's fun to play. It's not fun to play against. It's very miserable knowing that, like, no matter what you do, you might just die to a Split the Heaven and Earth if you hit too many non-basic lands and have too few counter spells rather to deal with them. In general, I think there's a lot of room for the deck to kind of grow. You can try some different things. You could play an extra color, maybe. There's a lot you can do. But, I mean, if you like playing Face Hunter in Hearthstone or Red Deck Wins in Magic, like, this is right up your alley. And it's a fun deck. It's pretty cheap. And, you know, I think it's a deck you should be very well aware of when you're playing tournaments. We have a winter box coming up. We're going to start having regular Forceful tournaments. And I think if you're not prepared to play against Mono Red, you're not going to have a very good time playing right now. Because nobody wants to lose to the guy just playing 1-drop creatures and attacking their face all the time. So I think it's very key to be prepared to play against this deck. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you're excited for more Forceful content. We're having a winner box this weekend, so we'll probably have some deck text from the winners, maybe some matches. We'll see what we can get. Thanks.